Hi everyone, David Maley here, and today I'm going to show you part 3 of the How to Pivot in R series. And originally this was just going to be a one-piece thing where you just create the process that you can go and interject into another more major process to take care of doing pivots and aggregating data in R. So you could take it out of Excel and stuff. So what we've done is I've already shown you the first part of code here where we created the pivots and everything. And I showed you the second part that I've decided to do to create a multi-plot. So that's in the second series or second video where we use this multi-plot function here. And now today what we're going to do is we're going to end up with this graph right here with all these graphs in one page. And what's neat about this, let me open this up and show this to you a little bit better here. Let's see, it'll take it a second here and it'll pop, make it better. Now I've made it bigger, or I can rerun it, it doesn't matter. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through several graphs here. So let me just shrink this down for right now. Let's shrink that. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our data and we're going to do basically a generic graph first. Okay, so that's this one right here, where remember we have pre, during, and post data, right? So it's in 3 different columns. So what I'm using is tidyr right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to gather by ID and value columns 2 through 4, right, which is pre, during, and post. And through ggplot, what we're going to do is the aesthetics of week and value. And then what we do is we print this geom point color equals dark blue. That ends up with this graph right here by week. It's kind of ugly looking when I have it small. If I were to bring it out and it was to we can re-render it. It's just not doing that right now, but it will. I'll show you in a little bit. But that's a generic graph, so it shows the weeks, but you can't really, by looking at it, quite identify exactly without knowing the weeks as to what the ranges of pre, during, and post. So you want to see it a little bit better. So this second graph here does that, and that's what this one is right here. So this one, what we're doing is I've got 4 geom points in it. So what we're doing is we've got, call it ggplot, and then we've got a point for pre, a point for during, and a point for post, but there's a fourth one. And the fourth one is we have to have this last line, and this last line corrects the bottom, because if you don't, what will happen is you'll just have different colors and it won't mean anything. It'll throw you off for the bottom row. So what that does is it says gray to everything in the bottom here. See this, how it's gray in the bottom here? It's not like red and some green and then maybe 1 or 2 blues in it, which is what would happen if I left it the way it is. So I want to correct that. I make all these zeros because there's the reason being is we have 3 columns, right? Pre, during, and post. And in pre we have columns or rows where there's 0, right? So we would have zeros in here and it would print those, but it's not necessarily going to be correct because they're already plotted up here. So it'll have the zeros here, but that also has data here. So it'll show, it won't show correct because they'll overlap. So that's the problem we have here. So that's how we correct for that with this last row here. And this last row, what it does, it says, okay, I'm going to go over each of these weeks for all the weeks from query 7, and I'm going to call them gray. So they're basically meaningless. It just, you know, they're there. But what I really want to see is this breakout. I want to have, and you can pick different colors. It doesn't matter. I put let's highlight this. I put the URL here. If you want to go and pick, select, you know, custom colors, go here. It's sape.inf.usi.ch / quick reference /ggplot /color. You can also just go on to Google and say R ggplot colors, you know, custom colors, things like that, and it'll show you the same thing. Okay, and then you can pick whatever colors you want. In this case, I picked red, blue, so I've got red 2, blue 3, and spring green 3. Okay, and then of course gray for the bottom row. So that's what this whole 5 rows basically here does. Okay, and I use geom jitter in case there's 2 dots that are like, because I've got some overlapping periods here. I've got, see, like here I've got pre and during in the same period, and here I've got, these 2 would overlap. So by using geom jitter, what it does, it moves them right next to each other so you can actually see them. So in this case, those 2, if I didn't use that, then the green would overlap the blue and I would not know there was a blue dot underneath that. So that's what geom jitter does. You want to use that on any plots like this where you have points all over, and especially where they could overlap. So that's the code for G2, which is this graph here, which will clearly show pre, during, and post. But I want to see more. So here's graph 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. So what we're doing down here, first we need a factor for this, and you'll see there will be in here, it won't work for column or the number 6, which uses a factor, unless I go and convert these two factors. So I take pre, during, post as levels, and then for query 1 period, and then I put it into a factor function right here. So I do that, and that puts it back into query 1 period. So they're now a factor, and then it works correctly. Now the next one is query 3. This is a density plot right here. It's a typical density plot. Query 4, let's see, is the histogram, which is up here. Okay, and query 5 is the violin, which will show better when I will run this and show it to you, and it'll look better. And there's an interesting reason why I want to run the violin. I'll show you that in a minute. And then the last one is this qplot down here, which is going to show by factor by month, by quantity sold amount, and the date. So you'll see the date down at the bottom, quantity sold amount on the y-axis, and then you'll have the factors of the months broken out in order, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'll show you why I want to run that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear this out so you can see me actually run this. So I've cleared that out, right? And I'm going to go back through and I'm going to load in my data, and I'm just going to run it all the way through all the queries right here that we did in part 1. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is we're going to do the graphs, but they're not going to show quite right yet. They're going to be loaded into G1, G2, G3, and G through G6, right? So I'm going to do up to here, and I'll run that. That's what's neat. That's why I wanted to put this in R, because now you have a process that can go and do the pivot tables and do the function and do the graphing all really quickly once it's built. So next I have this multi-plot function, but I'm not going to call this yet because if you look here in my environment, I do not have it set yet, the function. So I need to run that function. So the function's right down below here. I told you all we do is copy this or highlight it and control and enter, and it runs that, right? Now if I go back in here, look what happened. There we go. We got the multi-plot function is in there. It's ready to rock. And I've got the code right here is for a multi-plot is I'm going to just run multi-plot, and it's going to call G1, G2, G3, G4, G5, G6, and columns equals 2 columns, right? If I did column 1, it would have a bunch of them all squished like a sandwich. So let's do this, and we'll run it. Now it's going to run it small first in here. I'm going to open this up bigger. I want to show you what it looks like bigger in a second here because it looks better that way. And again, always remember to use geom jitter for this because otherwise you'll be missing some points. You won't see them. Now do you see how graph 6 does not show? Oh, it does. Okay, sometimes it won't show here, or it takes a while to show. Depending on the size of the screen here, it may not show. So what we do is we open this up because I don't have to show all this code up here. And see this a little bit here I have highlighted? Let's just run that again. Give it a second here. I might have to clean it out. Let's do that. Might have too many times that I've run. Alright, let's clear out the plots here. It's deep in thought. Okay. There we go. It's still running the last one, that's why. Okay, sometimes my R is running a little bit slow today, but that's fine. This should work. Let's see if it clears out or not. Let's give it a second. There we go. It might still do that. But regardless, so these are the graphs that we wanted to create. And again, the first one right here, now they're very clear, by the way, but the first one shows you all the weeks, right? So it's got the pre, during, and post period, but you can't really make it out. You know, I know what the dates were, but the people I'm giving it to may not. And they might select the wrong dates and be like, well, what are these? Why are there 2 points on this date and 2 points on this date? So instead, what we want to do is we want to show them like query 2 or graph 2. Okay, this one where we broke it out by period, right? Pre, during, and post. And then the bottom row, see how everything's the same color in this row and it looks like a mess? This one you can clearly see, because that's gray, I can ignore those. These are the pre, the red. These we know are the during, the blues. And the post, the small post period, is the green. So it makes it very simple to see, okay, here we are before, here we are during, and here we are after. Now it'd be interesting to see if you had a longer post period what this would really look like. Now the next graph starts to show a little bit more. So this shows post, during, and pre, and you can see the post has a big hit in the end. The during is kind of average, and then the pre is mostly here. And so if you look at this, it's by quantity sold amount. So what's interesting here is these customers from pre to during to post go from a lower basket or a lower quantity sold amount to a higher sold amount. So they go from, in pre they're somewhere down here, to post they're in here in the middle, and then, or I mean in during they're in the middle, and then in post they're towards the top. And you'll see it here in a second. So if I were to jump from here to the fifth graph, you can see that. See how this is, they kind of look similar, but if you look at it, the weight is here and here on the pre. In the during, the weight from here goes to here, and the weight from here goes to here. So it moved up. It moved the low to the average. It moved the average to a better group. So these people are increasing their spend. Now, the post is what's interesting also, because they don't go back down. So instead, now this group here goes up here, and this group here goes up here. So you've got movement from pre to during, and then you got movement from during to post. Both are positive movements, so you want to definitely show it to people. Now, this data right here tells me I'm going to want to do a Sankey diagram to really show the people moving from, like low to average and average to good and good to best groups of customers. So this one right here tells me that. This is what exploratory data analysis is all about, because you could start to pick things out. Okay, like, was the campaign good? Did it increase spend? How did it increase spend? What weeks did it increase spend? Did it increase in spend in all the weeks? Well, you can see here what weeks it did better and which ones it didn't. Now, what's also interesting is if you look at graph number 4, okay, graph number 4 was a histogram, right? So this one was a density, this is a histogram. And if you look at this, it can actually show you the how much pre there was, how much during there was, and how much post there was. Now, obviously, the post we know is going to be small because of what? It was a smaller period than the rest, okay? But you can see the growth in quantity sold amount. You can see, okay, well, the blue, it would be hard to see that it's growing here, but you can see the green, versus the pinkish or reddish color here, as to, where it gives you a little bit of stuff to look at, and maybe you can say, oh, you know what, I want to identify this, what happened here, or I want to say, maybe I want to focus more in on the blue areas, and I can go and tweak this graph to do that. So you've seen how to do these, and this one here, why this one's important, and it highlights that I want to do a Sankey on this one to better show the customer movement, because it's very positive, and my customers in marketing or sales are going to definitely want to see that. They're going to want to see how their campaign really worked and what magic it really did. And then this last graph here, what's really cool about this one, this is the one that we did with the factors, okay? It's the last one right here. And so what we did with this one is it shows the pre, which is these two, right? This shows the pre period. This shows the post period. And it's broken out by month, okay? If we broke it out by week, it becomes very messy. So in this case, it's not as easy to read. It actually makes some straight lines. It's not good. So the month is the best for this one. But this shows the pre, the during, and then the post period. So you can actually look at, okay, what actually happened in September to October? Here it is. What actually happened in October to November? And then you can see the range. Is it narrower? Is it wider? Is it growing? Is it, what are we looking at here? Same thing with the post period. And you can see the post period is mixed right now, but it's not long enough to really show anything. But the cool thing is you've got a lot of higher end. See, this is quantity sold amount. So you got a lot of higher end spend here. The pre-period, you had a big dive here for some weird reason. And so We could dig further into that too if we wanted to and find out what really happened. Was there a I don't know, hurricane? Was there a storm? Was there what could have caused this? A downtrend in the cycle, the community, who knows? Some layoffs. It could have been anything. But so what's interesting is here's the actual the campaign, and it popped it right up at the beginning, and then it popped it up again at the end. And the post period has not let down to here or anything, so it's still holding pretty good after the campaign. So that's a good sign. So basically what I wanted to do here originally was just give you a piece that you can reuse in other code, and you have that. But now you also have, along with that, a function that you can use to go and stick, multiple graphs together and make them look nice. You can change this to columns equals 1. It will be kind of ugly. You could change it to columns equals 3. Then maybe that looks better for you. And you've seen how the multi-plot function works. I give credit to the person who actually created it. It wasn't me. And on top of that, you now also have some great graphs that you can quickly put on one page that you could just assemble in a matter of seconds and quickly look at your data and say, okay, here's, if I didn't do anything to it, but because I want to spread it out, here's how I do that, and here's why we went and did those pivots and aggregated the data earlier. So now we can go and break it out because of those separate columns and look at, here's the pre-period, here's the post-period, and here's the the pre, during, and post, and I could sit there and identify, okay, well, what happened? Look at this week. It's week 38, and had the biggest spike there. I can look at things like that. I can look at the density plot and start to identify that with this and this together, and maybe with a little bit of this, these three graphs here, I can say, okay, I have the grounds for bringing and doing a Sankey on this, and the Sankey diagram will give me much more data on the customer movement, which will definitely be worth doing in this case because it'll show positive trending from pre to during and from during to post. And then you also have this to show what exactly happened during the different weeks, the different months. So thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful and useful. It's just a great way to go and automate some of your code, take stuff out of Excel that you sit there and have to manually go and create your pivots and manipulate the data and constantly do it over and over again. Instead, read it straight in R, leave it in R, and do all your calculations in there, and then spit out your reports in the end of what you want. And plus, you could do something like this and quickly say, okay, look, I can identify 2 things I want to look at. I want to look at the spike, and I want to look at a Sankey on this. So it's just a great way of being able to take your data and quicken things and save you some time so you can have more time to do some fun and interesting stuff rather than repetitive stuff that you don't want to keep doing over and over again. All right, good friend told me once, if you do something 3 times, it needs to be in a process, period. So hope you learned something great here. This is good stuff that we use all the time in data science and data analysis. Please take a moment, if you haven't already, please subscribe and like the channel, or like this video, because then you'll be able to see all the other great videos I have coming out. And have a great day, and I'll see you later on one of the next videos. Thanks.